I mean, Srimad Bhagavatam.
No, just I'll give a little introduction.
Okay.
And then, we'll start.
Let me bring this to you.
So if you're managing this thing, it's like, it's on the screen here. Oh, it's not on the screen. So where is it now?
Which thing, Mataji?
It's,
Let's.
so this is what it will be.
Yeah, sorry.
Can you hear it?
No, yeah, here. TV.
Yeah. So, you know, we have a pot. So it will, you know, I will read this. And the thing is, it goes on its own, but the timing isn't really optimal. So, you know, this goes on,
And
but
okay.
during this, I pause so I can read that. And then we start it again. Right? And, you know, it'll go on and then it's gonna get to this place here. This will happen. And it'll start showing, right? Now, it'll come to places like that I want to speak. So I'll be like this, stop it right there. Then I'll speak. And then when it's time to go again, I'll let you know. It'll go again. I hope I don't leave you a sore shoulder. Okay. What's your name and everybody singing?
I think his Parampara. I think it's Parampara.
Get a chair. Get a chair.
No, no, it's okay, Mataji. I'm good.
Yeah, you take this.
No, 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 no. It's I'm okay. I don't need it. Mataji, it's okay.
So it's all set,
Yeah, it's it.
but that is only audio. There's no video with it. That's only audio. There's no video with it.
No, I'm setting my.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Because like we were just don't want to immediately go public, right?
But it's not up there.
अभी आगे बोलिए।
तो जब आपने मैक एयरप्ले से कनेक्ट किया खाली ऑडियो कनेक्ट किया
Trying to get it to him because so Am I online here?
Mataji, like it's from Shyam Prabhu's ID.
Am I hooked up? Okay, so
एयरप्ले से ओनली ऑडियो कनेक्ट किया
लेकिन यही बोला।
there's no video connection.
Let me try, Mataji. Give me 1 minute. Just give me 1 minute.
I could, now I could send it to him on your computer, with your computer.
Actually,
he has connected everything through this computer.
बाबू जी ने ऑडियो बोला था उनके प्रभु जी एक बार गूगल में सर्च करना पड़ेगा. So, actually, for some reason, my computer is not connecting to this one. बोला कि स्क्रीन मिररिंग मेरे को था, स्क्रीन मिररिंग होना चाहिए था. Yeah, this is very- By chance, where you have screen mirroring?
What?
Screen mirroring, by chance, screen mirroring.
I'm not interested.
Okay.
You only connected audio. You need audio connect. You need video.
मिल गया है. प्रभु कोई मिल नहीं रहा उसका स्क्रीन मिररिंग के.
Mirroring and sharing.
वो ये इसमें लेकर जा रहा है, ये कह रहा है कि आईफोन और आईपैड से है. हाँ, आईफोन और आईपैड से है, मैक से नहीं दिखा रहा है. Let me try from this Mataji if I can connect with this one.
ये this is the मिल गया
हाँ प्रमोट दे दो। Let me, you will be sitting here, there, Mataji. You will be sitting there, right? You will be sitting there, right, Mataji? Yeah, so I can bring that to there, Mataji.
Krishna, good evening. We almost got sabotaged by technology. But I did have a plan B, but now it worked. So the screen is over there, you're over here. Can we just pull the mats down and get everybody so they can see the screen closer? Are you okay? All right. Great. Then we need to dim the lights.
So before we start, let me introduce my dear senior god sister.
What you say is I'm a very old lady.
I didn't say that. I'm the one who said it. But we're so extremely fortunate. I cannot express how much fortunate we are to have Malathi Prabhu with us this evening. She is one of the senior vice devotees in the Hare Krishna movement, starting back in the late 60s with Srila Prabhupada. And she's one of the few devotees who went to London and eventually met the Beatles and eventually brought George Harrison to this movement. So Malathi has been dedicatedly serving Srila Prabhupada for over 50, how many years? 55 or 50?
I haven't started yet. I'm trying.
More than 50 some, 57 years, so. Yeah. She's retiring from the GBC, which she's done for many, many years, dedicated her consciousness or energy to help organize this movement. But next year is the last part, she's retiring from that. So now that she's retiring, we have a new job for her. To
You
help
know,
us-
retiring, actually, it's probably not the exact right word, because then people think, oh, what's she gonna do, sit down on her porch? Um, You know, just a change of service, you know. I don't need a title to serve. Nobody does.
So we need you here.
And I'm definitely not dropping the ball on the places that I've cared for and have, been connected with.
So we're thankful that you at least giving us your blessing,
The what?
encouragement, your blessings to the center and to the devotees.
Oh, this is so wonderful.
Thank you so much. So look, all together, let's please welcome Malathi Prabhu with big Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare.
Can we push this back a little bit? Just this thing here.
Want some water here?
Okay.
What?
This is better.
You want to put some water next to you?
No, look, get that away from me. I'll knock it over and spill it. No, it's serious. Where's my bag with the computer? Maybe it's over there. Because I have water in a bottle. You see that black bag there in the corner? Yeah, they're offering me water. It's really dangerous to offer me any liquid in a cup when I'm speaking. I can guarantee you it will be a very wet floor. Thank you. Therefore, I always bring a bottle with the lid on. Better if you know yourself. Yeah, so thank you all for coming this evening. It looks like there's a big party next door, and there's lots of shoes out there. So we're a little bit more of a humble endeavor. So I thank you so much, because our endeavor is to assist the mission of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and bring people back to Krishna. And I'm not quite sure where they're going over there. Om Nyan Chandrandasya Sananam Sakalaya Chakshun Militam Jena Tasme Sri Gurve Namaha. Namaha, all of this Prabhupada's pronouns. Namaha Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya today. Sri Mati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nikti Namane. Namaste Saraswati Devi Bhavani Karane. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Radha Shivasana Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram. Vanchakalpa Tarunista, Pipusindhuri Vita, Patitanam Kavanam Yo, Vaishnavi Yo Namo Namaha. So this is a, thank you. This is a, what is the time frame? Because I can make this shorter or longer. So if I'm told what is the time frame. Are we gonna have a competition with the sounds? You're gonna be a competition with the sound. 8:30, okay, that's great. So this is a, if I just showed the video that was compiled by myself and Rupa and Vishakadevi, who is now temple president at Bhaktivedanta Manor, and her and her husband have done massive amounts of service for Srila Prabhupada in terms of filming, that big movie that came out with Prabhupada that was done in Barnabas office. So we worked on this, and it's like an 11-minute clip, except that we pause. I pause and I speak about some of the pictures. And I can't pause at every picture or we'll still be here tomorrow morning. But the idea is many of these pictures, probably all of them you have seen before, but you probably don't know the backstory. So I'll be introducing you to the backstory. And it is Srila Prabhupada's shower of mercy, Srila Prabhupada and his daughters. So it's a glimpse into the relationship of Srila Prabhupada and his lady disciples, which is not all that well known. Most people, because most of the books up until fairly recently were, coming from the point of view of the men. But the ladies definitely had a part in the Hare Krishna movement in the beginning years. And I was in Mumbai having finished a GBC meeting, so I'll be flying out of Mumbai, and I was with another god sister going from Juhu to Chowpatty Temple. And I was just thinking about how the women's voices were not so well known. And that seemed like a disservice, but I wasn't sure what to do about it. And then I suddenly thought, well, we need the women's voices. And the result of that was a book called A Bond of Love, Srila Prabhupada and his daughters. And I don't see it on your bookshelf, but I will tell you who to contact to get it. And if you like, you can get it Amazon.com. It's only $20, but it's almost 600 pages. Why is it so inexpensive? Because we didn't do it with the idea of profit. Our profit is getting the story of Prabhupada out and about. So with that, we were requested by the ILSI International Leadership Saga to do a presentation in 2016. So this was kind of the result of that presentation. We did the little clip, we took, stories from the ladies and the pictures, and people were genuinely moved, to realize what a role the women actually played in the development of the Hare Krishna movement at that time and until today. He's better work the computer stuff. So can we have a more dim with the lights a bit? And because also for me, it just like, yeah, that's good. That's good. Thank you very much. So far as your question regarding women, I've always accepted the service of women without discrimination. This was a letter from Prabhupada to Guru Das in 1972. You need to have it so you can see it and move it quickly. Unfortunately, the video is a little timed, so. No, I'll tell you when to stop it. That's why you're there. Can you hear this?
Yes.
So here we see Srila Prabhupada, we see Radha Landanishwara on their installation day. These were the first large marble deities to be installed and worshipped in ISKCON. And we see Jamuna Devi Dasi, who had been trained personally by Srila Prabhupada in the art of deity worship. And she's the one who is there assisting Prabhupada in this glorious installation. So just briefly here, the lady that you see here, Janvi Devi Dasi, is one of the early artists. And the early artists were the ones that painted the pictures that illustrated the Bhagavad Gita, the Srimad Bhagavatam, and the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Srila Prabhupada understood that most people nowadays in Kali Yuga would just speak of anybody but Western people too. They're just not going to sit and read hardcore philosophy. So by having the illustrations, it would make it more attractive. And as he said, it brings the Bhagavatam to life. Get back to whenever there's writing, you have to stop it. I take a pause here. So here we see a young woman standing in front, it was in front of Prabhupada. This is in Paris. And there'll be a couple more pictures and you'll get an idea of the grandeur of this. This was a huge program. And this is Jyotirmayi Devi Dasi, and she was Prabhupada's personal translator for any large program because she had a very acute mind. She had complete grasp of the philosophy, and she could repeat Srila Prabhupada's words perfectly in French. So she is here, she's giving a lecture, and she is speaking. You can see, very big place. So in India, all the acharyas and their descendants later on acted only from the men's side. Their wives were at home because that was the system in the old times, that the women were not required to go out. But in the Bhagavad Gita, we find that women are also equally competent, like the men, in the matter of Krishna consciousness movement. Please therefore carry on these missionary activities and prove it by practical example that there's no bar for anyone in the matter of preaching work for Krishna consciousness. And this was the letter from Bhakti. And don't stop until I tell you to. Here we see Govinda Dasi. Govinda Dasi was Srila Prabhupada's personal secretary, and her husband, who you don't see in the picture, was his assistant and servant in many ways. He was helping him with the early composing of the books, etc. But Govinda Dasi was taking the notes. Prabhupada would dictate, she'd take the notes, then bring it to him, she'd transcribe and bring it to him for his, and you can see her, morning walk, and she's taking notes. This was at John Lennon's estate, and that was Dumuna. Here's a program in Bombay, and you can see ladies are very much part of the show. Okay, so this was a little interesting here. So on the so this will be your right side. This is Madhuri Devi Dasi, and she was the wife of Tamal Krishna Goswami during his Grihastha era. And then on the other side, you see his Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada holding the hand of a little girl who happens to be my daughter, Saraswati. This is at John Lennon's, and of course you see the happy mother behind. And then next to me is Draupadi, who at that time was Bhakti Denise with her little son, who's trying to see his head. She and her husband were, this is in John Lennon's estate here. So Prabhupada would go out on a morning walk, but because I was cooking for the devotees' breakfast, I couldn't go out. But the place where I was cooking was on the ground, so I could hear Prabhupada coming. And the door was one of these, we call it a double Dutch door, like the top one would open, but the bottom part would be closed, right? So I kept the top part open, could hear Prabhupada coming, could see him when he'd go by, but Saraswati was quite small then. So she just wanted to get out, so jumping up and down and up and down, and somehow she got that door open, and she ran out and grabbed his hand. So he looked at her and he smiled. He goes, Saraswati, you're not properly dressed. Because you can see he has a big heavy coat on, because it was actually cold outside, This was in Ascot, it's outside of, if you know Ascot, where they had a big tennis match. Anyway, famous place. So she turned, she looks at me, she didn't say it verbally, but with her eyes, bring my coat, bring my wellies. Well, you can see Prabhupada had these boots on. It was very damp. So I brought her coat, I brought her boots, and she still wouldn't let go, like she put her arm out, I got one part on, and then she grabbed his hand with, and then let the other hand, to get the coat on. She was not gonna let go. So she went on the walk to the Prabhupada by his mercy. Dinanath and Jamuna had another program. And here you see I'm there with my daughter speaking. I don't know what to the microphone. Keep it going because there's only 2 sides. So again, you see Madhuri Devi Dasi, she's assisting Prabhupada, and she was a part of a fire yajna. So this happened in India. Again, the ladies were always included and being participatory. Again, on the other side, you see again Jyotir Mahi. This was a lady from France. This is in France. This is at the French farm Nouvelle-Lyonport. And you can see overhead there's a tree. It's a really big tree. It's a stately oak tree. Srila Prabhupada sat under that tree and gave initiations. But that tree was so old. It's over 200 years old. And now even older. It was present during the French Revolution, if you haven't know anything about, history. So this tree saw a lot, but I think by the fact that Prabhupada sat under that tree and performed initiations, it liberated that tree. And Jyotir Mahi was appointed by Srila Prabhupada to be the headmistress of the Gurukul. So she would bring the children out and teach them under the tree, weather permitting. Anyway, yeah, I missed the boat there. I don't know if you can go back easily. Okay, this is Miss Dr. Sharma. I just wanted to mention her because this is in the early era of Bombay. We didn't yet have a Jew who wasn't even on the radar, but we had Rasa Bihari, and they were in was like, we called it a high rise. It wasn't like humongous, it was one of the early multi-story buildings. We were on about, I think, the 5th or 7th floor. And Rasa Bihari were also there because we had a big program up and they were part of the program. After the program, we had to have a place, they've been worshipped, so you can't suddenly, once they're worshipped, it's like, here they are. So, she would come. There was on, what was this place named Akashganga was the name of the building. It still exists. It was right across the street from the ocean. So you can see that, Prabhupada's taking his morning walk and Dr. Sharma was there. And she, on so many occasions, would literally save the lives of the devotees because we were just like so pitifully unequipped to live life in India. So we were always getting sick and she would come and save our lives. So this is very interesting. How many of you know the Shakadevi Dasi, or at least you've read her books? Yeah. Yes. So 11 years and 5 months. This is a must read. 5 years and 11 months, I think. So here's a girl, a young woman who came from America to join her boyfriend in India. Her boyfriend was a photographer. She was also a photographer. He was sent to India to photograph the Hare Krishna movement. But they had him start in New York and then they heard we were in India, so he sent there. So after a while, he wrote to her, why don't you come and join me? My assignment's almost finished and then we can do something together. In the meantime, John, her boyfriend, against his expectations, was getting pulled in closer and closer to Prabhupada and the devotees. So he still wasn't thinking he would be a devotee, but when you're around Prabhupada and following the program, it's inevitable something's going to happen. So he wrote to Jean, her name was Jean, and come and we'll go. She shows up in Bombay. And what was really interesting about her, she was born into an atheistic family, like hardcore atheist. Her mother, her father, atheist. She was an atheist.
just like Prahlad would go to school and he would preach about Krishna to his schoolmates. She went to school and would preach atheism to her schoolmates. So here's this girl coming in, and the assignment was finished. And they had this idea that they would, what is that? So they had this idea, they were going to go and photograph the essence of India. Go to some village and photograph. So they went to Prabhupada to ask him his opinion, and he goes, well, he said, you don't speak their language, they don't speak your language, they'll simply steal your expensive equipment. But if you want to go somewhere, go to Vrindavan. And they went to Vrindavan, and they stayed there for several months. And the little atheist girl, woman, she was like 22, she left Vrindavan in a completely altered state. So now here's the former atheist getting Gayatri mantra in Mayapur. She was initiated and married in Vrindavan by Srila Prabhupada, and she got her Gayatri in Mayapur. But that's the power of the 637 devotees, sadhu sadhu. So I want to take a pause here too, because you see she's on the morning walk with Prabhupada, and you notice her ticket, you see that camera? She had that camera and she became the unofficial she was unofficially the official photographer. And so many hundreds of pictures that are now available were taken by her and her husband, but majority by her. She had that camera and she could go anywhere the Prabhupada went without an invitation. And one time I asked her, so did you learn anything? She said, yes, I learned how to walk backwards really fast. But this is Srila Prabhupada offering arti to Radha Gokulananda at Bhaktivedanta Manor. It was her first arti. This was interesting because in Los Angeles, devotees had purchased 3 apartment buildings across from the temple. And in the basement of one, the bottom side, they made a little subji market. They'd go to the wholesalers and then they would, this way they could make inexpensive pricing for the devotees. I don't know if you can see the price, it's like 25 cents a pound and, Anyway, Prabhupada was very happy to see their enterprise. So this is a beautiful scene. When we were in Juhu, the Hare Krishna land, initially we bought the land, but it was occupied and by people that lived in these apartment buildings that were there. And we didn't have the right to kick them out. We didn't want to kick them out, but we didn't have the right to remove them from their occupancy. So we were living in tents in Bombay, well, in Juhu. Juhu was not developed and it was like way out, and people would go, why are you going to go out there? But Prabhupada knew that Bombay would come to Juhu. So at the evening, there was one flat. Some people don't let Prabhupada use one of their flats, so he had a place to stay. And in the evening, he'd go up on the roof. So you know how it is in India, the flat roof. So, and anybody could come. So there was this group of young ladies that would come quite often, and they would learn some Bharatanatyam dance. And then spontaneously, they would come up and dance to the Prabhupada. The lady here on the left side in like a turquoise sari. So she was the daughter of one of the main tenants in this place. And this gentleman, his last name there was Warrior, was himself a very pious person. And she was the youngest of the family, so they called her Baby Warrior. And Baby Warrior was a very, she loved Krishna consciousness, she loved Prabhupada. So she would get these girls and they would come and dance and as you can see, you don't stop until I tell you, Garland Prabhupada. So here we have Dallas, Texas. That was the first Gurukul. So we see Srila Prabhupada and he's giving a cookie or a sweet to the daughter of Nandarani, the little girl's name Chandramukhi. Nandarani and her husband had, before coming to Dallas, had, along with her two daughters, gone to Tehran in Iran. And that was not a little thing because the Americans were not really looked well upon. And in the end, of course, they did have to leave, but they established something in Tehran. So now here they are in Dallas. And she's the head Pujari, he's the headmaster of the Gurukul. Their daughter's getting a cookie, and of course, the mother's very happy. And when Prabhupada first arrived to Dallas, the deities were actually closed, but Nandarani knew he would come. He would come and look. So she ran into the temple room and opened the deities so that Prabhupada would not see a curtain, that he would see the deities. And she was expecting, so he did come in, she opens up and she's expecting he's going to say something about the deities, beautiful deities. How many of you been to Dallas? So yeah, Radha Kalachandji. As a piece of information, I was one, myself and another lady, we purchased those CDs. So we weren't even asked to do it. We saw that the Kalachandji and the other devotees, she goes, the children in Dallas would love him because he's big. So anyways, she opened the curtain. She's expecting Prabhupada to say something about the deities. But what did he say? He said, Nandarani, you are here. And she was so affected that tears just shot out of her eyes like a syringe. And another devotee who was watching that, who told me the story, she also started crying. So here we have the counterpart in Italy to Jyotirmai in France. This is Ali Krishna. She was the first one to begin translating Srila Prabhupada's books into Italian. And this is in Rome. I don't know what I said, but this is Rome. So, this is a big program. She's also the translator for Srila Prabhupada. And you can see very well attended. And just as a matter of fact, like her husband is a GBC member, he's also the head of the BDT in Europe, in that part of Europe. And to this day, she's still engaged in assisting with the translations and publications of Prabhupada's books in Italian. So this picture here is very interesting. This was in Calcutta. And how many of you been to our temple there in Calcutta? Yeah. So beautiful Radha Govinda. So you can't quite see me, you can see the altar. And then you see this young lady, and what's she doing? She's giving Bhagavatam class in Calcutta. You see, there's a gentleman there. Behind her, you can't see, you can see the piece of the furniture sticking out. That's Prabhupada's Vyasa sign, and he was sitting on the Vyasa sign, and yet he asked her to speak. So far as girls or boys lecturing in the morning, that doesn't make any difference. Either girl or boy, devotees may deliver lecture if they choose to do so. We have no such distinction of bodily designation, male or female. As such, anyone who is a devotee of the Lord, following in the line of disciplic succession, can deliver a lecture on the teachings of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. The letter to Shamadasi, an early pioneer. Nairobi. There's this little girl getting some major Maha mercy from Srila Prabhupada. Chitrita from the archives. So here's a beautiful photo. This was taken in the Potomac Temple. This was Prabhupada's quarters, which due to the construction of the new temple, these quarters no longer exist. It was a hard decision to make, but they needed a new bigger temple. So these are Prabhupada's quarters, and this young lady, Kim Waters, was showing a illustration to Srila Prabhupada. It's an illustration of the Gita. And she and her husband were very artistic, musically and otherwise, and talented. And she had this idea, she wanted to make this book, The Illuminations of the Gita. So they decided to ask Srila Prabhupada, and they went to New Vrindavan to meet Prabhupada at a time they were having a big, it was called Bhagavatam discourses. So, you know, a few hundred devotees were gathered there. And it was really hard to actually, you know, get a private darshan, so they were waiting. And it was the last day of the discourse, and he's leaving, and everything, it's now or never. So he's coming, it was up on a hilltop. So he's coming up, he's gonna come down the hill, and they run up and they said, Srila Prabhupada, we would like to present an idea. And they told him what it was that they wanted to do to illustrate illumination. It's a special technique, these illuminations. And he said it was quite, they got their order from Prabhupada in 2 words. He said, do it. And he took his cane, do it, you know. So now she's done it, and she's showing him the results. I could actually give a whole class about Janaki and Srila Prabhupada. Janaki was not in awe and reverence mood. She was like the motherly mood. You know, it means like a mother to son. So the mother can even scold the son. I mean, you know, she would scold Prabhupada. And she would, so here's what happened here. This was at the airport. He was leaving to recover from his illness in 67. And in those days, they had paper tickets or, you know, cardboard. And he was sitting here. He was holding his ticket like this. And she came up from behind and grabbed the ticket. And she goes, now, Swamiji, you can't go because I have your ticket. And there's another picture, and he's looking up to Mukunda like, do something. This here was the next to what you see with the beads, it's actually Mukunda. So anyway, she gave the ticket back, and it was this sweet, you know, exchange there. Janaki was like that. She had no qualms about. So one time, just to let you know how she was, there was a woman who got her way into the apartment building where Prabhupada lived. The temple was on the bottom floor, he was on the 3rd floor. Janaki Mukunda had an apartment 2 doors down from him so that there would be someone to help if need be. So somehow this kind of crazy girl, probably a little bit on some altered state of mind, got up to Prabhupada's room, she's banging on the door. He opens the door and she pushes her way in. She goes, Swamiji, will you marry me? He says, I can't marry you in a sannyasi. But she wouldn't leave, so he went out to get over to Mukund and Janaki's, and the door slammed shut. And he didn't have the key, so effectively he's locked out, the crazy lady is locked in. So Mukund had a spare keys, you know, and he's going to go over there. Prabhupada, Janaki stopped Prabhupada, and she goes, Swamiji. She's like this, Swamiji, never leave your apartment without a key. She was just like that with him, you know. But it was such a loving mood. Do you ever make Simply Wonderfuls for the Sunday feast? What? Oh my God, you have to do something about this. So one time Prabhupada asked for some dry milk. What he was asking for was koa. You know what koa is, right? But we didn't know what koa was. So somebody brought him like powdered milk. To us, that was dry milk. And he was like, okay, what do you do with this? And he had some butter and he mixed it together. He put in some powdered sugar, rolled a little ball, and he called Janaki. He said, try this. And she goes, Swamiji, that's simply wonderful. And he said, and you are also simply wonderful. But Simply Wonderfuls used to be at every feast. I can't even believe you don't know what they are. You definitely have to do something about it. This is in Oxford, in London, outside London, sorry. So here was a very extraordinary evening. When Prabhupada first came to London, we had these programs. And the programs were at a place called Conway Hall. We rented it. We wanted to make a nice presentation. We were still staying at John Lennon's place in Ascot. So it was about a 45-minute drive in. And we would hire a car, and the car came with the driver. And it was just like Prabhupada and the driver, whose name was Eddie, his servant, who was named Purushottam, and myself and Saraswati. And why I was included in the picture was because I would go back with them and I would cook Prabhupada's evenings and whatever he wanted, something. Usually it was something like some puppies and hot milk, or maybe aloo, some curry and hot milk. So this driver, he was just a very regular English, we say English bloke. He never said a word except "Good day, sir. Good day." I'd open the door, shut the door, start the car, drive us. Never really, and he'd sit in the back. So when it was over, he'd be out there by the car with the door open. But this one night, what happened here, Prabhupada was giving, it was in one way kind of a regular, you're not the body, you're spirit, soul, part and parcel of Krishna, a basic, 101 Krishna conscious lecture. After the lecture, it was quite normal for him to ask Jamuna to lead a kirtan, which he was doing. And sometimes he would leave, but this time he stayed. And at one point he stood up, he started dancing. And you can see I'm down here at the lower left-hand corner. There's other devotees. This one, if you can see out there in the back of the devotee with the arm, that was Trimakam Swami. So he starts dancing, and all of a sudden I realize, and so did the entire audience, and they jumped to their feet. Prabhupada was levitating. His feet weren't coming down on the stage. He was dancing, you could say, in the air. It was just extraordinary. So just like the electricity of that movement. And then it was like, over like with Prabhupada, like nothing happened. So he goes out to the car. I'm already there myself, and Purushottam would always get in, so he wouldn't have to wait for us to get in. So then Eddie opens the door, Prabhupada gets in, and Eddie gets in, he takes out the key. He starts to put it in the key, to turn the car on, and suddenly he turns and he goes, well, Prabhupada, he kind of has pronounced it wrong. Well, Prabhupada, you got a little out of control tonight, didn't you? And then he nudged him with his elbow. And we were like shocked, And I remember Purushottam says, rebirth material. So then he puts the key in, and we hear the key go in, and he starts to turn it, and then he stopped. And he said, but it's just like you say, just like you said. this car is no good without a driver. So it means he understood the body and the soul connection. And it was such an amazing thing because he never gave any indication that he was listening at all, but he was listening, and Prabhupada was able to convey the message so anybody from any level of life could hear and understand. This was at John Lennon's estate in our little temple room there. So this picture, this was after our big Delhi program, and Prabhupada promised after this big Delhi program, were actually the presiding deities for Radha Gokulananda, who are now at the manor. At the big programs, there'd always be deities. And generally after the program, then they would be sent somewhere to be worshipped. Well, I mean, they were already worshipped, but like to continue. So for example, you had Radha Govinda in New York, they were in Jaipur, for example. And you have Kishore Kishore from Chicago. They were in the second Bombay Pandal, and as an aside, there was a story about them because Prabhupada sent me a telegram when I was in Jaipur, and he said, bring deities, large size. And those deities turned out to be Kishore Kishore. He really liked them. Anyway, not to get off track too much. So Jamuna had worked so hard to get this Pandal program going and get the deities, which meant you have to have all the shringar, the arti paraphernalia, etc. Even though they're on the stage, which there was curtains and all, there was regular worship with the artis, the offerings, went on. And she was exhausted because she was the one behind the scenes making sure everything happened, and if it didn't happen, she would do it. So Prabhupada saw that, and we were all going to go to Vrindavan, and we had a bus. We actually had an air-conditioned bus. Did you know they had air-conditioned buses way back then in the 70s? I'll tell you how it was air-conditioned. There was no glass in the windows. So the air just came flowing through, and there was no padding on the seats. So keeping that in mind, we had a car for Srila Prabhupada, So he said to Jamuna, you come with me, and he had her sitting in the car. Now you see this watch on Prabhupada's hand. Prabhupada was very conscious of time. He didn't waste it. He understood time is Krishna. And one time when Pragosh Prabhu from Ireland was the head of the GBC chairperson, he got the message that he got the idea that back in the old days when there was a king, there would be an open day when anybody could come in and talk to the king. He thought we should do the same thing for the GBC. And I thought it was a great idea. Some of the other GBC members were not so enthusiastic, but we went ahead with it. And the first person who came in said, I think the GBC should not wear fancy watches. And I'm like, my God, my watch was from Walmart. I knew practically everybody I knew had some kind of a cheap watch. And I felt like, not about me, I didn't care, but I felt, I knew my godbrothers, and I felt like I had to defend them. So I spoke up and I said, I don't think we have too many people wearing fancy watches here, And he goes, well, Gopal Krishna Goswami has a Rolex. And Gopal Krishna Goswami goes, Srila Prabhupada gave me this watch. And this is the watch that he gave to Gopal Krishna Goswami. And at that point, he had it for 37 years. He kept such good care of it. That's my daughter. She's giving him a garland. He's like going back. So I stop here. Does anybody recognize where this is or can guess?
Vrindavan,
Kind of close, but
or Govardhan?
specifically, where is it?
Govardhan?
It's Varshana.
Oh,
So you know that to climb up, if you've been to Varshana, you have to climb up these stairs, right? And there were these fellows with the, the palanquins. And so it's steep, it's a steep staircase. So, okay, Prabhupada was take the palanquin, but his disciples wanted to carry the palanquin. And you all know the story of Jud Bharat, like the caves. So it was kind of like that. So at one point, Prabhupada said, okay, now you've had your fun, let the locals do it. The young lady here, this is wonderful lady, devotee, her name is Mudira Devi Dasi. And she was joined in Buffalo. A lot of fantastic devotees joined in Buffalo. It was like a chakra spot, Buffalo, New York. She was like 17 years old, so she joined. And she quickly became, she read voraciously, she memorized well, she could cook like anything. She could play the mridanga, the kartals, the harmonium, she could sing. She was just really such a qualified young woman. And she marries Tejas, who is a wonderful person, but kind of like, kind of difficult type of guy. And I'm sure none of you here are like that. So he goes to Prabhupada and he brings her and he goes, Prabhupada, I want to take sannyas. So you all know what that is, right? So Prabhupada said, why do you want to take sannyas? And he goes, because my wife won't do what I tell her to do. Great reason, right? Prabhupada said, well, your wife is a very intelligent young woman. You can do what she says. This is again on the rooftop pastime. Yeah, actually, I gotta tell you a quick story about the rooftop pastime in Bombay. Because as I said, everybody would go up there, anybody could go up. And I had just read that part in the Bhagavatam where it said you shouldn't become a parent or a teacher unless you could liberate your dependents, right? Deliver them from birth, death, disease, and old age. And I thought, I can't do that. I don't think I can do that. And I thought the only way I could do it if Srila Prabhupada initiates my daughter. So at that time, she's in the Gurukul. And I went up to the darshan and I was just sitting there and everybody left and Prabhupada saw I was still there. He said, he calls me forward and he goes, is there anything? One other time I'd had an exchange with him. I sat behind him, he called. So is there anything? I said, without any preamble, I said, Srila Prabhupada, will you initiate Saraswati? Just like that, And he goes, they're already initiated. Now, one would think that I would have said, what do you mean? But I was so like dull-headed and I was so fixed in getting her initiated. I said, but will you initiate Saraswati? So he could tell he wasn't getting to, just, all right, bring beads. But I had them with me. And I passed the beads over to him. And he sat and he chanted on them and he hands it back and her name will be Miss Saraswati Devi, which it already was because he named her at birth. And then he said she can sit in, because he knew she was in Dallas, and she can sit in when there is a next fire yajna. So it so happened that the next time that school closed down and she got sent to Europe. So she was in France going to school under the Gurukul there. And I was doing traveling Sankirtan all across Europe at that time. But I was my base was in France. So my daughter was sent there. And I I had just gotten deeds for the temple in Holland, in Amsterdam, which are now no longer in Amsterdam. How many of you been to Radhadesh? Oh, you should go there sometime, gorgeous. Radha Gopinath and Lobit Vishaka. So I had gotten these deities and Jaya Tirtha was going to install them. So there was going to be a fire yajna. So my daughter was sent up from France to sit in at the fire yajna. So she got that initiation. And he said, so what are the rules and regulations? no meat eating, no gambling, no intoxication, no illicit sex. And when she said no illicit sex, everybody kind of started laughing because she was only 7 years old. You know? Okay, anybody, have you see that prototype? They're like, you know what that is? Huh? It's the first, it's the first prototype of the TOVP. And this is a big program in Calcutta. And we have Kaushalya Devi Dasi leading the kirtan, and right behind her is a sannyasi. There's all kinds of men. But Srila Prabhupada had so much affection for her and her sincerity that he would call, even ask her in Mayapur to lead the Guru Puja. And this was a pretty fantastic situation. This was Vishakhapatnam, and Prabhupada was invited there by a god sister, and he would take walks on the beach, by a god brother, sorry. He would take walks on the beach. And at one point, I was noticing that Prabhupada did not leave an imprint in the sand. You know, like the water would go out, the sand would be where you'd sit and there would be an imprint, the water would fill the imprint. But I was noticing that Prabhupada, he wasn't leaving an imprint. And it was like so thrilling, and you don't see, but Brahmananda was there. And he was Swami at the time, but I just wanted, somebody had to see that. So I tapped him, and normally I wouldn't do that, but and I pointed and he saw it, and then he started telling the other people. And Jamuna had the same experience on a morning walk at John Lennon's estate, that the grass would have the morning dew on it, so everybody would leave a footprint except Srila Prabhupada. It was very, very mystical. This was at Radha Damodar Goswami. This was in London. Was Tamakrusa Goswami there. This is the lady on your left. That is Shilavati Devi Dasi. She left her body in April, 93 years old, but she was personally taught by Srila Prabhupada on deity worship and considered her an expert. Again, this is Govinda Dasi system. This is Jamuna. This was kind of a funny story. He tells her that, like, after he'd spoken, he tells her to have the kirtan. So, you know, she was used to it, we were used to it. And suddenly she hears Prabhupada chanting over her chanting, but he wasn't chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, he was chanting something else. So she's looking up like, should I stop? And he's indicated she should continue. So the next day she goes, what was that? And she goes, he said, you didn't see Narada Muni came. And he was singing Narada Muni, you know, that's the song about Narada Muni. So that's what he was chanting over her kirtan. Now, this was not the first sighting of Narada Muni. The first sighting that we were aware of happened in San Francisco, but time is moving here, so I can't tell. But in London, this was the first sighting. And when the deities were installed, he told us to make seats, one on each side of the altar, one for Narada Muni, so if he came, he'd have a place to sit, and the other for Lord Brahma. And to this day, you will see in the London temple, these seats are there. So this picture is interesting in many ways. So the lady there with the bowl, it's actually a bowl of red flower petals. And this is an airport welcome. So, you know, we could go to the airports, go inside. Oh, you're Pujari also? Thank you very much for your service, and thank you for the service you're about to perform. Yes, so this is Mama Mohini Devi Dasi. She also has a brother, Swarup, who is he's her brother and godmother. So airport thing, and she had a bowl of red flower petals to sprinkle before Prabhupada. But she was the first widow in ISKCON. And her husband didn't just die, he was actually killed. And she had a 2-month-old baby daughter, and she really liked being a mother, and she had looked forward to having more children, but now, you know, what's gonna happen? So she was wondering, you know, in her mind, should she think about getting remarried or not? And her brother said, let's ask Prabhupada, and they got an appointment. They go up the stairs, this is LA, so the stairs up to his quarters, they're making their obeisances. Now, they hadn't spoke to him, they hadn't told anybody else about what was on the mind, right? So they're making obeisances, their head's coming up, they weren't fully up, and he goes, so, do you want my opinion? Goes, well, what do you say if your guru asks that? You know, if you say yes, you have to be prepared to follow what he's going to tell you. This is proper etiquette. And if you say no, you're going to tell your guru you don't care what he said. So, you know, she said yes. And he said, so it didn't work the first time. What makes you, what is the guarantee? Use that word. What is the guarantee it'll work a second time? So you can understand. She was thinking about maybe remarriage. Didn't work the first time. What is the guarantee it will work the second time? So then, you know, her brother is saying, well, you know, I think she wants to feel protected. And Prabhupada then became very, very serious, and he looks at her and the brother, and says, you don't feel protected? Because he was our protector, you know, just like when, I mean, all of us felt that protection. So he was very, you don't feel protected? You know, so it was, you know, a very deeply instructive moment. And, you know, it's free will, you could do what you want, but she followed through the Prabhupada's instruction. And he said, so raise your daughter to be Krishna conscious, you know, raise your daughter, and that's what she did. And as far as getting more children, her daughter got married and she got grandchildren. Actually, this is very interesting because Balagopala was also curious about what's going to happen when, you know, when our children, when it's, you know, like, will you be their guru? And he said, no, they will have to find their own guru. You know, so just like with me, when I said, will you initiate? Well, they already initiated, but he said, no, they will find their own guru. But this is, I mentioned this picture earlier today, where you see everybody's in yellow and saffron. This is a beautiful moment in Boston. And so some of you, if you were there this afternoon, heard the story, how it turned out that everybody was dressed in either yellow or saffron. Because at first there weren't, you know, back and forth to India. Even our beads weren't real, quote unquote, real Tulsi. They were pine wood beads gotten from a, you know, a hobby shop, and we'd string them ourselves. So we had no real saris or dhotis. And people would write about us in the news. They'd say, well, it looks like they're wearing sheets. And that was really a fact, you know. So one time, one of the leaders, early leaders, got the idea to get some material from a fabric store. And he got a big bolt of material. He brings it to Prabhupada, you know, what do you think? He said, you know, this way we'll look when we go out on the Harinam, we'll kind of look a little bit more uniform, a little together. And Prabhupada approved the idea, and he said, so you can dye it saffron. The thing was, he was a cook. And if anybody's a cook, you know, when you put saffron in the milk or water, it comes out yellow. So he dyed the entire bolt of cloth this bright yellow color, and he brings it back to Prabhupada. And Prabhupada was like, well, had to explain to him what he meant by saffron. But he didn't want to waste the cloth, so he said, so the grihastas can wear it, they can use it. Now, the way it got interpreted was Swamiji's bed, like it was some kind of order, but it was just a practical instruction. We didn't have these in those days. There was no WhatsApp, there was no internet, but the word got around, and practically overnight, everybody was like yellow canaries. So when we went to England, we were in the yellow canary mood. And the unmarried men and women, of course, are wearing separate color. This is Gauri Devi Dasi, who was a Maha book distributor, and Prabhupada also was teaching her deity worship. So the early dual beautiful picture. This is actually New Vrindavan, and there was the temple at that point was not the grand structure it is now. So they had a program out on one of the hills called Bhagavatam Discourses. And hundreds of devotees came from all around America. And you can see some videos of that. And Yadavar has these following Srila Prabhupada series, so you can see that. And here is another lady. So this is Chandravali Devi Dasi holding her child. She was a friend of mine. And when I entered into Krishna consciousness, she also became interested. And she was kind of like, whatever I would do, she would do it. But like one time I got a motor scooter, so she got one too. I got a job at the post office, she got one too. Or she kind of would do. So I joined, she joins. But it was very interesting. She was a mix. She was like, she had, like now we call, in those days we said Negro, but now Black American. So she had that and Mexican and, Caucasian. She was a mix. But she's identified with the Spanish part. And so she went to Prabhupada and she said, she started translating the first Gita in Spanish, but she wanted to go to Mexico to start a temple. And, Prabhupada started out, but she also had this idea of getting, and this is how we got Brahmatrini Ashram. She said she would like to get a flat for all the ladies to live together, because the men all lived together in the temple. It was not luxurious. It was a basement without windows, but they were together. And the ladies were all living here and there, and then that meant they had to work and pay rent, whereas if they lived together, it'd be expedient and they could do more, Krishna Seva together. So he presented that and he gave his approval, and therefore we had the first Brahmatrini ashrams by her endeavor. This is actually a historic picture. I have to get this over with in 15 minutes, and there's so much nectar here. So this is Montreal. We're on our way to London. We stopped in Montreal where Srila Prabhupada was waiting for a visa extension. And the historic part is that we all got Gayatri Mantra. And Wendy, who came with us from San Francisco, was initiated. She got her first, and so that's Rukmini Devi Dasi, the first one on your right. She's getting her name, Rukmini Devi Dasi. And then you see Jamuna, the lady in the back, she was not part of the show. Then there's Jamuna, there's Saradia, another beautiful story, no time to tell it, but young girl who joined. And then Mukunda, myself, and Saraswati. And of course, Guru Das is taking the picture, Shamsundar somewhere, and then that's Govinda Dasi in the back. But that was kind of a historic moment. And this is also just a reference, because sometimes nowadays people are told women don't do dandavats. But here you can see that, yeah, there's women that do dandavats, and there's Srila Prabhupada, and he had no issue with it. This person, make a quick stop here. I don't know if any of you recognize on your left side, the fellow with dark hair and white. You know who that is? That's Gopal Krishna Maharaj, not Maharaj yet. Yeah,
It's on the right side.
his name was Gopala. He came, Prabhupada kept the Gopal part and added Gopala Krishna, you know. We'll keep going because I don't have time to talk about those two. So, let me pause here. This is this here you see, like, what is this? This is all devotees. Do devotees dress like that normally? What are they doing? They're out in Harinam, and these are the theater that we the theater troupe. And the lady you see is such as Rasa Gya. She was a very talented actress, and her husband Lloyd Toxic, they were very talented behind the Sudama. So they would come out during Harinam and do a quick skit, you know, on the street. And then somebody would say something. And so in this case here, she was playing Maya Devi. In case you couldn't figure that out, you know. She was really good. So they had this play called The Age of Kali. And her role was like Maya or Sin, you know. And one time the brahmacharis came to Prabhupada and they said, we don't think Rasagya should be playing that role. Prabhupada said, oh, he didn't say anything, and they gave all the reasons. And there was a rose on the desk in a vase. So Prabhupada picks up that rose and he's kind of turning it in his hand. So he said, so is there anything else you want to say? And he goes, it's just like this rose. When a karmi sees a rose, they think, let me get it and I'll give it to my girlfriend and I'll enjoy. But a devotee sees a rose and they think, let me offer this to Krishna. And that ended their argument about Rasagya not being player in the This is in Jaipur. And no, you can just kind of go here. Well, go ahead. Go ahead and stop in a minute. Yeah, so this is the Rapunzel program where Radha Govinda, who are now in New York, were first installed and worshipped by His Divine Grace. And also, you can go ahead, this is where Tamal Krishna Goswami took sannyas. The London airport, Prabhupada is going. My daughter getting some mercy. Janaki Devi again. So take a little pause here. This is Surat, and Surat is indelibly imprinted in our minds and our hearts, every one of us who was there. How many of you are Gujarati? No Gujaratis here? What's happening? Actually, the Gujaratis used to be the backbone of ISKCON. Anyway, we went there and we were received like anything. It was extraordinary. Every day they would publish a route and we would go on the Harinam and it would be filled with people and they would string mango leaves and flowers from one building to the next. There could be kind of narrow streets and there would be Rangoli on the streets and people would stop and give us garlands to the point where we like couldn't breathe and we'd have to take them off. They'd offer, you know, different offerings to us. It was an extraordinary welcome. An extraordinary insight on what it could mean to have a fully Krishna conscious situation. So here is the cornerstone laying ceremony in Juhu. And look who's helping us, Divine Grace, with her grace, Srimati Devi Dasi. You know. We are Vaishnavas. we're not concerned with male or female position in life. That is simply bodily concept of life. It's not spiritual. Whether one is male or female, it doesn't matter. Simply chant Hare Krishna and follow the four regulative principles, and your life will be perfect. Now, this is a letter to a person who is having a conundrum in life. You know, now we have all these people, they can't figure out if they're male or female, he, she, it, they, whatever, they're just confused. It's nothing new. This person was having the same problem, what to do. It was not represented here, so he gave very good instruction, but what he told her, it doesn't matter, male or female, choose one and stick with it. But he made the point, we're not concerned. It's a bodily concept, it's not spiritual. Doesn't matter, simply chant Hare Krishna. Follow the four regulative principles and your life will be perfect. And there's Bhakti Das, the president of the largest ISKCON community in North America. So this is the humble end. Let me keep it going. You guys, there should be another. Oh, well, there's two versions. So the other version had a beautiful, it was oh my God, sisters, it was about maybe 9 or 10 years ago, and we gathered, it was Prabhupada's disappearance day in Vrindavan, and the stage was full of the God sisters honoring Srila Prabhupada. But we never felt minimized, we always felt part of the picture. And it wasn't always easy, because sometimes the wonderful young men could be kind of difficult, they just, like, they kind of looked at the women, like if they had a problem, it had to be the fault of the women, At one point, one very wonderful sannyas got the idea that he would solve the problems by sending all the women to Australia. He seriously got that idea, sent all the women to Australia. And why did he pick Australia? Because Australia in those days gave free passage, so they were trying to populate the country. So what happened was Prabhupada sent that sannyasi to China. I think some of you might know who I'm referring to. Anyway, it's divine grace, Srila Prabhupada. Anyway, I hope you got some little insight into the wonderful loving relationships between Srila Prabhupada and his daughters. And I hope that the women are feeling encouraged to go on with your service. And I hope the gentlemen are feeling encouraged to encourage the ladies. But the ladies also, we have to encourage the men, because there is, as Prabhupada said, it's bodily concept. But at this moment, we do have this particular dress, the male or female dress. So, okay, there's some etiquette that has to be observed, and we should observe the etiquette. But at the same time, we should be happy to see one another engaged in Christian service. What do you think, Shambhi Hari?
It's just my opinion. They may not better managers than men.
Right?
Women are better managers than men.
I could use my.
Is it women or men?
Actually, I was the first temple president lady in America. It was. I said, yeah, I wasn't even thinking like that. There was something that had to be done. This temple was going to be closed. I thought maybe I could do something, because I knew Prabhupada said, don't, if you open up a temple, don't close it. And there was deities there. So I was feeling a little alone. I said, well, maybe I can help. And so I said, okay, I was just thinking somebody will come along, they'll find somebody and come along, so in the meantime, I'll keep it going. After a year and a half, I thought, maybe I'm in charge here. So that was the Columbus Temple, and it became kind of known as the Malathi Mandir. It was a place for ladies to come and get trained in Krishna consciousness. It wasn't by plan, it was just happened by design, Krishna's design, and we just responded to it. And then in 1998, we had this conference with ladies. Actually, no, the conference was in 97, and we found out that there was no rule anywhere that said ladies could not be on a GBC. So we thought we should have a lady on the GBC. It's all men, and we should have a lady there. So we got together and we were like trying to figure out who could we put forward. And we weren't coming up with anybody. And then I was getting the eye like, okay, they have a saying that fools rush in where angels fear to tread. That's me. So I said, okay, I'll try. I had no idea what was going to happen. But somehow or other, I think all the men got bewildered and they agreed that, okay, I'll be on the GBC. And I was thinking, okay, well, now I'm gonna go, somebody's gonna take me and show me the ropes, right, Nothing at all like that. They handed me a hot potato case of a fallen sannyasi and I had to deal with it. That was my introduction to being a GBC. So, it's been a wonderful experience and, as Prabhupada said in this one letter, there's no bar to anyone in the matter of preaching Krishna consciousness. And that's what it's about, these so-called roles, whether you're a TP, a zonal supervisor, general super, temple presidents, GBC or this or that. It's just all about service. And if you think it's anything else, then you're gonna be very disappointed because it's only about service, And like I had mentioned earlier, you don't need a title to serve. You just have to have the willingness to step forward and do whatever has to be done.
This presentation available as like a complete, like a YouTube video or something like that?
But the YouTube one is it's just the video. But if you can clock into the ISV, Eastern Silicon Valley, there is myself and Vishaka we partnered and we gave a presentation and it is recorded. So maybe you know about ISV, maybe you can find it and let them know, look into their archives.
Should go to ISV website and check over there, or
Here's somebody who knows about ISV. He knows, he's now he's just home for vacation. He's an ISVer now. So it's called Silicon Valley. That's what ISV means. Otherwise, like I say, you can see the